A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. This proverb comes from ancient Greece, a world without stock markets, central banks, or housing bubbles. Yet today, thousands of years later, it describes our problem better than most modern economic models. For the first time since the Industrial Revolution, successive generations in developed economies are no longer becoming richer than their parents. This is not a short-term dip. It's not a recession. It's not a temporary shock. It is a structural shift. For most of modern history, progress followed a simple assumption. Your children would live better than you did. That assumption is breaking. Young adults today are more educated than any generation before them, more productive, living in a world richer than ever, yet they struggle to secure stable jobs, afford housing, start families, build long-term wealth. So what happened? How did a world that became vastly richer end up producing generations that are economically weaker? Is there a single cause behind this shift? And if there is, then can it be reversed? The generational advantage nobody talks about. Let's start with a basic question. Is it better to be born into a large generation or a small one? Traditional economic theory argues that being part of a small cohort is better. Fewer people competing for jobs, cheaper housing, easier access to education, less strain on public services. By that logic, the baby boomers, the largest generation in modern history, should have struggled. But they didn't. In fact, they became exceptionally wealthy. This contradiction led British economist and demographer Lord David Willetts to an uncomfortable conclusion. In democracies, large generations don't lose. They win. Why? Because voting power matters. When the baby boomers were young, they were numerous, politically unified, and economically underrepresented. They voted for free or heavily subsidized education, public housing programs, strong unions, generous welfare systems. These policies helped them accumulate human capital quickly. Then something changed. As they entered their peak earning years, their political priorities shifted. Lower income taxes, deregulation, protection from international competition, policies favoring asset ownership, and later, as they aged, stronger pensions, healthcare spending, protection of housing wealth, removal of inheritance and wealth taxes. Each stage of life reshaped policy, and because they were such a large voting bloc, those policies passed. This isn't a moral judgment. It's a demographic reality. Housing, the great divider. Nowhere are the consequences clearer than in housing. In the mid-20th century, houses were places to live. Today, houses are financial instruments. This transformation didn't happen by accident. Local zoning laws restricted density. Cities limited supply. Single-family housing was protected in valuable locations. The result? Land became scarce. Prices surged. Housing turned into a wealth storage mechanism. For homeowners, this was fantastic. For everyone else, it was catastrophic. The interest rate myth. A common defense goes like this. Sure, houses were cheaper back then, but interest rates were insanely high. That's true, but incomplete. In 1985, median U.S. home price, $82,000. Mortgage rates are 15%. Total annual repayments, $18,000. Today, median home price, $430,000. Mortgage rates are 5%. Total annual repayments, $36,000. Despite interest rates being 3 times higher in the past, housing consumed far less income. High interest rates actually helped earlier generations. Savings accounts paid real returns. House prices were capped by affordability. Mortgages were paid off quickly. A home could be owned outright in under a decade. That world is gone. Housing is a unique asset. It does not produce goods. It does not generate innovation. It does not expand productive capacity. When capital flows into housing, it doesn't build factories. It doesn't fund startups. It doesn't improve productivity. Instead, it recycles into more real estate, pushing prices even higher. This creates a feedback loop. Rising prices benefit owners. Owners lobby for protection. Supply remains restricted. Prices rise again. Meanwhile, workers are priced out of economic centers. Cities stop being engines of growth and become wealth extraction machines. The mobility crisis. High housing costs destroy mobility. Young workers stay where they grew up. They delay moving for better jobs. They postpone independence. In 2020, over half of young American adults lived with their parents. That is not a cultural shift. It is an economic constraint. When workers can't move, businesses can't grow. Productivity stagnates. Growth slows. But inheritance will fix this, right? Eventually, boomers will pass on their wealth. So isn't this problem temporary? Not really. Most inheritances arrive late in life, often when recipients are nearing retirement themselves. That money doesn't fund entrepreneurship, doesn't buy first homes, doesn't encourage risk-taking. It gets preserved. Economists call this intergenerational wealth stagnation. I call it the Prince Charles problem. Waiting your entire life for opportunity, only to receive it when it no longer matters. Is this just boomer greed? No. This isn't about morality. Democracy rewards numbers. People vote in their own interests. That's how the system works. History also played a massive role. Post-war peace. Globalization. Cheap energy. Unprecedented growth. The baby boomers didn't create these conditions. They benefited from them. Once extreme wealth exists, it rarely disappears. A small number of billionaires can distort generational averages dramatically. A global perspective. China provides an important contrast. Its equivalent of baby boomers are known as the lost generation. They lived under economic stagnation and missed the country's explosive growth. This shows something critical. Wealth comes from timing and structure, not just policy or voting power, though political influence certainly helps.
The future question.
A society doesn't collapse when young people become poorer. It stagnates. When young people can't afford homes, start families, take economic risks, the system slows. Innovation declines. Birth rates fall. Growth disappears. A great society invests in people it will never benefit from. The real question isn't whether we can reverse this trend. The real question is, do we still believe that future generations matter?